70 WOCA.
WOCA.
All right, 25 minutes before 11.
In the middle of the show.
Thank you for tuning in. Brandon Wood is in the studio. He's with Climate Control Mechanical Services, and he's here to answer your questions about your air conditioning units, your heat pump units, your heaters, your furnaces, if that happens to be your humidifiers, and all the things associated with it, and including some of the things that have been phased out, like the older refrigerant. We're going to find out about that and about the money involved with all that. And then, boy, that sounds like there's a big topic here. The Environmental Protection Agency has phased out the older refrigerant, and he'll tell you what they do when they come upon a system using it. I hope I said all that right. And during the course of the show, we invite you to call Brandon if you have a question, even if it's about something other than the specific topic that I just mentioned. If you have a question about your air conditioner, feel free to call. That's why we do this. The number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, which is 622-9622. Brandon, good morning. Thank you for coming in. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So how long ago did the EPA outlaw that refrigerant? Is that what we called Freon?
Yes.
That's what we called Freon, okay.
Yeah, in 2010, they made it illegal for any companies to produce any equipment using that refrigerant, and by 2020, it will be illegal to actually produce the refrigerant.
Oh, really?
For the refrigerant makers to produce it. They still produce it right now, but it's about quadruple the cost of the new refrigerant, which is R410A.
And the environmental reason for outlawing it is?
The chemical compound of the refrigerant affects the ozone layer.
Okay.
It's an HCFC, which is a hydrofluorocarbon compound, and the chlorine in it actually depletes the ozone layer.
Okay.
The new refrigerant 410A is just an HFC hydrofluorocarbon with no chlorine in it, so it's environmentally friendly. We still have to recover the refrigerant just as we would R22, though, into a recovery cylinder. We cannot just release it into the air. Even though it's environmentally friendly, we still have to practice all the standards of an EPA card and EPA regulations.
Okay. Now, when would you actually extract the refrigerant? What would cause you to need to do that?
Well, perfect situation. Yesterday, I went on a call. His system is 7 years old. Unfortunately, he lost his compressor. That's it's like the heart of the system,
okay.
The most major component. If I was to replace that system, I would have to pull out all the he's got R22 in his system, and then put all new R22 back into it, because I'd have to actually anything to do with opening the line sets or the refrigerant lines. You have to either recover the refrigerant or pump it down into the compressor. But if you're actually working onto the compressor, you can't do that. You have to recover all of it.
Okay.
And unfortunately, with the, he's stuck in a sticky situation, because he has to basically either pay thousands of dollars for a new compressor, or for a couple more thousand, he'll have a complete new system. But his system's only 7 years old. But with the cost of the refrigerant, really raises the cost of replacing that compressor versus getting the entire system. So repair versus replacement really comes into play when you have an older refrigerant system.
So give me a dollar amount so I can get a grasp on this. When you say it's going to be more expensive, is it hundreds of dollars more, or thousands, or?
Yeah, it can be hundreds of dollars more, because just the cost per pound of R22 is a lot more than 410A. Wholesale pricing, the cost of a 30-pound jug of R22 is right now about quadruple the cost of 410A, what it costs us, and it goes up every week. Like, it just gets, because the government, they want it out, and I can't imagine how much it's going to cost by 2020. We've got 7 years left of them making the refrigerant, but the cost of it is so extreme.
So if an average system was totally depleted and you had to refill it all again, could you put the new refrigerant in?
No. You can't just drop in the new refrigerant. The system has to actually be designed to work with that refrigerant, with the pistons in it. It's the flow raters in the system would actually control the flow rate of the refrigerant. That's what has to match for a 410A system versus
so what would that
R22.
Is there a dollar amount you can give us, some kind of an idea? Like if it's totally depleted, needs to be totally replaced, how much money is that on average?
If I just dumped in, like, say, okay, the average system holds 10 pounds of refrigerant, it could cost you anywhere from $800 to $1,000 just in refrigerant.
Okay,
and I had that happen before. I had a customer where he had a Schrader valve leak on where we put our gauges, and it dumped all his refrigerant, and it cost him about $1,100 to put in all the refrigerant. Something like that, when there's nothing wrong with the system, is feasible to do, rather than replacing the whole system.
Right.
But add that to having to replace the entire compressor too, and now we get into the couple of thousands of dollars versus, you know, $5,000 for an entire system for his particular system. And these are all ballpark figures.
Can you, with your experience, just look at a system and know that it's either, is it R22 and R, what's the other one?
410A. 410A. It's just 410A.
Can you just by looking know?
What they do is, no, you can't just look at it other than the very, very large pink 410A sticker they put out on the condenser, and because you got to be careful. I have two different sets of gauges. I don't want those two refrigerants mixing in my gauges, what I use to check the refrigerant. So I have two sets. And when 410A first started getting popular, it got tough to remember, I put my 22 gauges on there and it's actually 410A. So I have to constantly go back and forth from my gauges.
Oh, wow. So we would know as consumers what we have because there's a big pink label somewhere on it.
If there's not, and your system's older than, say, 2006, then it's probably R22.
So I probably have R22. I don't know. I don't think there's a big pink sticker anywhere on mine.
Yes. And there's also the efficiency factors of the system. Our 410A systems are actually roughly around 30% more efficient than a 22 system. If it's around 10 years old or older, it can be anywhere from 50 to 70% more efficient, because that coincides with when in 2006 the government mandated that any air conditioning system has to be a minimum of 13 SEER, the seasonal energy efficiency rating, versus 10 SEER, which is what the companies used to build. But the government, so even the even the lowest system out there has a pretty decent efficiency rating, which is 13 SEER, and then it goes up from there.
Oh, wow. Now for the person listening who figures, wow, I've got the 22, I'm sure I do. It's going to be outlawed in 7 years, right? The 22, right? Do I have the year right? The 2020? Okay, so do I do it now? Do I switch over now? Do I get a new system now? What's your advice on that?
It all depends on the age of the equipment, what you're spending to run that equipment, and also to, and I think that comes into factor. How much money do you want to save on your electric bill?
Right.
If you have some large systems in your house and you're really paying a lot to use them, I would say replace it as soon as you possibly can and get a high efficiency system.
So it'll be actually cheaper.
And I've seen electric bills cut in half.
So the new refrigerant actually is more efficient.
Yes, it is. It's up to 30% more efficient on any system that's around 10 years.
I know you said it before, but I guess it just went in one and out the other. Yeah.
It's actually more efficient.
All right, you have a phone call. Let me just repeat who you are. I'm sure they know by now. Brandon Wood is your host right now, and he is with Climate Control Mechanical Services. This is what he does for a living, and my goodness, we've learned so much more than cooling and heating from you, Brandon. Good morning. You're on there with Brandon Wood.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to compare what you're talking about with the automotive industry, who went from R12 to R134A.
I'm definitely familiar with that.
And it was touted for all the same reasons that you're saying this new Freon is for the same reasons. And it turns out that it really didn't pollute any much different one than the other, but nevertheless, you can't buy R12. But at the same token, when they switched over, and you couldn't buy that in America, the price of it went crazy from about $34 a cylinder to $90, and then it doubled again. By the way, I've got some of that R12. I bought it before it went up.
Yeah, I believe my father still has some too.
But other countries continued to use it, R12. And so it became a big business importing and smuggling 30-pound cylinders of Freon into this country.
Oh, wow.
And people were bootlegging it and selling it. And then the problem was it wasn't pure. It had something else in it. And you couldn't tell until you bought it. But do you think that that's going to be a problem, that this R22 is now going to be still used in other countries and smuggled into this country?
It could very well be. I didn't realize the demand for R12 was that high to where people were actually smuggling into this country. But I suppose the same scenario could happen, and I would imagine that the R22 from another country may be a different mixture or have contaminants in it and could really damage your system. And I know what you mean about R12. Even though they outlawed it, they didn't make it so. They just outlawed the manufacture of it. It's not illegal to have. So once the once the R12 got into the U.S., it's not illegal to actually carry. You know, it's not illegal to have. My father still has jugs of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't necessarily make a law where you're mandated to destroy the refrigerant, nor do I believe they're going to do that with R22. So there's going to, even after 2020, there's going to be a lot of R22 floating around. So I'm sure something like that could happen if somebody wanted refrigerant R22 bad enough.
Buy it now.
I still can't believe people smuggled R12.
An investment. Buy it now, or as soon as it becomes available through the illegal sources, buy it and hoard it away, and it's going to be worth a ton of money 10 years from now.
Most definitely. Our company, I keep telling them, we need to stop buying. Right now we're at the point of buying, per jug, and it's it is very, very expensive. Literally quadruple the cost of 410A, and to buy it in bulk, because the prices are even going up literally every 6 months on it. The prices go up, I swear, almost once a month, I think. Every time I go to my supplier, the price is more on it. So to buy it by the pallet would definitely be a lot better. And you're right, if you could afford to actually buy it and keep it, it would be an investment.
All right, good show. Thank you very much.
Sounds like it, yeah. I've always wondered something, and I know this is a little drifting from the main topic, but does using the air conditioner in your car cause you to use more gasoline?
Yes, it does.
It does, okay.
Because the engine actually runs the compressor that
so it's working harder?
that runs your air conditioning, and a clutch actually opens on your compressor pulley to engage that compressor. That's why every time you turn the air conditioning on a little bit older cars or smaller engine cars, you'll feel your car drag down a little bit, because that's one more accessory that your engine has to control. So yes, it does.
So it costs more.
Yeah, it does.
And just as you're in your house, when you turn the air on, you're going to be paying more money for your electric bill as opposed to keeping it off. Good morning. You're on there with Brandon Wood.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
With the larger window air conditioning unit, are they also? Do they have to be R13, or how would that work?
Pretty much, yes. Any new window unit, if you went to Lowe's today and bought just a simple window unit, it would have 410A in it. The new refrigerant. But there's lots of window units out there that have R22. But as far as actually working on window units, if you ever do have a problem with it and there is a leak in the system, most companies don't put gauge ports, access ports on their systems, so I could actually charge it. It's not worth fixing them. You'd just be better off buying a new one. But yeah, I believe all the new window units have 410A in them.
Do most of those units run on 110?
A lot of them do, yes.
Yeah.
The bigger ones run on 220.
What I've got here, I've got a ranch-type home, and it's very long, and way on the other end of the house. The air conditioning, it works down there, but the person that usually stays down there wants it much cooler.
Yeah.
So rather than going to the expense of, I don't know what, putting a bigger unit in or having some fans, or I thought maybe I'd put a window unit in down there, and the footages around between 350 and 400 square foot. About how big of a unit would you recommend for that space?
You would need probably about 1 ton of air conditioning, around 12,000 BTUs.
12,000.
Yes.
And more than likely that would be a 110. I wouldn't have to do any electrical.
No, you shouldn't have to.
Yeah. Are they pretty efficient? Or I know at one time, the old days, the window air conditioners were really, they weren't too good.
They are not very efficient. The initial cost would be more, but it sounds like you could really benefit from what's called a mini split system.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but it actually has the head unit that mounts on the wall inside, and then a line set. The refrigerant lines actually go outside to a condenser. And like I said, the initial cost is quite a bit more than a window unit, but the efficiency is 10 times better.
You'd make up in the long run, you'd be ahead on.
Exactly. In the long run, it would pay for itself. It's also a noise factor with window units. You've got the compressor right there. They're loud, they're noisy, they're obtrusive.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, they don't look very good.
Do you install a lot of those kind of units?
Yes, the mini splits, a lot of them, especially down in the villages. Oh yeah, because a lot of people, like when they say enclose a patio, and they don't want to upsize their system, and even adding ducts off their original system is really putting a strain on their system because they added square footage, especially something like 350 or 400 square feet.
Right.
Your system would run non-stop in the summertime to try to keep up.
Yeah.
So we put mini splits out there, and they're remote control, and they're systems where we can actually work on them, get parts for them. They have good warranties. So
could you use a mini split system on a second-story building?
Absolutely.
To help, cause you know, at second story, it's very hard to air condition up there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that would sound like a great solution to that problem. Is just to put a mini split up in there.
It would be, and actually, they go all the way up to very, very large commercial buildings where they have, like, say, one 30-ton tower on the roof, and then they've got multiple units to where every office has its own fan coil. And you can individually control the temperature in each office.
Very good.
Or your home. We can put multiple heads. Like if you had 1,000 square feet, we could put 2 heads on one condenser.
Okay.
The options are really endless with mini splits.
Yeah. So you say basically the unit is outside the building.
Exactly, except for the fan, because being that there's no ducts in the system, there's a fan control unit with a coil inside of it that actually mounts to the inside on a wall somewhere.
Okay.
And then, but all the other equipment, the condenser and the compressor and condenser fan motor actually all go outside.
Oh yeah.
And they're virtually silent. Even the compressor, they have inverter compressors in them, so they have infinity amount of speeds.
Yeah.
So they're very, very efficient systems.
Yeah. So for you guys to service them, you got to get up on a ladder, huh?
Well, yeah, if we need it. Well, depending on how high the indoor unit is. Basically, the only service the indoor unit needs is pulling the filters and washing them out.
Yeah, yeah.
All the units come with custom-sized washable filters, but I've found that they stay relatively cleaned, and the service on them is relatively minimal. I would have it checked at least once a year check the refrigerant on it and check amp draws.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I said, with window units, by the time you buy parts for them, you can't add refrigerant to them. The cost of repairing them versus replacing them is just too great.
Yeah.
But mini splits are definitely worth fixing. You know, that I work on them all the time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye now.
With the mini split, in the previous shows, you've talked about accessories or options like the ultraviolet light and the dehumidifying units that you could get and associate with a big unit. Would the mini splits have those options available to them?
Yes, actually, we have found a couple of mini splits that have, as far as the UV lights, they're special air purification systems built right into the head units, because the standard UV lights we use on a regular home split system would not apply to a mini split.
Okay.
And as far as filtration, they come with the filters that as far as filtration, they don't really get too advanced where you can have like a 4-inch filter because it's just too obtrusive, and you really don't need it. The filters they come with, I have yet to see a really, really dirty mini split coil. As long as you clean your filters, things like that, and use your filters, Wouldn't be too much reason to actually pull the filters out and throw them away, though.
And for those who didn't hear the show about mini splits, you can even have them camouflage, if you will, as a painting on the wall.
Yeah, that was a new. It was a new brand.
That was cool.
LG actually makes it.
Yeah, that was cool. Good morning. You're on the air with Brandon Wood.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. I have a question. You were talking about the refrigerant. Now, when you take an older system out, say you're replacing it with a newer system, and you recapture that old refrigerant, is that valuable? Do you give a customer credit for that, or do you?
No, we destroy. We have it destroyed.
I see.
We don't take the refrigerant and sell it, like say at another customer's house. It's recovered into a one-way valve tank to where we can only put refrigerant in. We can't take it back out. Or I'm sorry, a recovery tank. We could take it back out, but the risk of putting contaminants into somebody else's system, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not done, but it's not something we practice. But we have the recovery cylinders actually taken, and they're pumped down and actually destroyed.
Yeah, it would seem like with the cost of that, someone that was less than scrupulous would recover it and sell it back.
Absolutely. And they do recycle it. They do take the refrigerant, and I don't think we get much for it, but they do take the refrigerant and refine it. I suppose it would be like refining used motor oil.
Okay.
They put it through the refining process and make it like new again. Okay.
That was just a question I had in the back of my mind, because you were talking about the value of the material, the actual refrigerant itself.
Yeah.
I'm considering having a new system put in. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get the money.
Well,
my
there's
system's 25 years old, so I know I can benefit from a new.
And that's one way you'll get money is, and also depending on, usually when you start getting into the 15 and 16 and high efficiency rating systems, you can get a tax credit and rebates from the manufacturers. They all vary because the government does want you to buy an efficient system. But your system is about 25 years old. You will see a dramatic difference on your electric bill.
Yeah.
What size is your unit? Do you know?
I'm not sure. It's a 3-bedroom house. It's a regular, heat pump type unit. It's a train. I'm not sure how big it is, but it does seem to, in very hot weather, it barely keeps the house, mid-70s, and it's running hard as it can.
You may have to upsize the system if the system was too small for the house.
Right.
Or it may be low on refrigerant. It's on a system.
I had it tuned up. It is running. It is. Refrigerant levels are good. And
that's good.
Are good.
Yeah, that's the most important thing with any system, especially a system that age, is having them maintained.
Yeah, I want to replace it before it dies, and when it's 125 degrees out.
Believe me, unfortunately, the system I condemned yesterday. It seems like that most of the ones I sell and replace were not planned. That it's nice to be able to actually plan it, put some money away and actually figure out a budget rather than call me to come fix your air conditioning and say, oh, we got to replace it. Because it's usually, you're right, it's when it's 100 degrees out and when you really need air conditioning.
Right.
So unfortunately, decisions have to be made fast.
And of course, you'll come out and give me a free estimate and show me different options and things when I'm ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. And probably now, is there financing available through Climate Control?
Yes, there is. It's not through Climate Control, but we work through Florida Credit Union.
Okay.
I'm working with somebody. I had a customer a couple weeks ago, and she's getting financed through them.
Well, good. That's good to know.
And a lot of they have all different programs. Some 6 months, same as cash. Different. All depends on your credit.
And I guess if you did the math, the amount you save with the more efficient unit versus the amount you're spending on electricity with the old unit, eventually it'll pay for itself.
Exactly. Some of these payments on these systems, if you did finance it, could almost be paid with what you're saving in electric, depending on how big and how efficient your system is. So you could...
Oh, wow.
I guess in theory, you could almost have no money out of pocket. You could literally pay what you've been paying now. Just say all the savings you get in your electric bill could be going towards the new system.
Wow. That's awesome. The guest just before you, she was talking about scams, and I don't know if you heard us talking about licensed and questionable people who come to your home to try to sell you things. That's one of the things I love about the fact that you come in here, Brandon. I mean, you allow our listeners to at least know one person, or one company, I should say, that is legit. You've got all the licenses, all the training, the experience. Obviously, I mean, between the guys all the guys we've met from your company,
especially licensing from a refrigerant standpoint. It's very important that every tech as themselves. I actually have what's called an EPA card, where I had to take EPA exams and become certified in handling refrigerant. And back to that, the one listener who called about actually investing in refrigerant. Most people, you wouldn't be able to buy refrigerant unless it was on some sort of black market or smuggled in. Legally, only somebody that holds an EPA card and has a contractor's license can buy refrigerant. If somebody was to invest in it, they would probably already have an air conditioning company. And I'm sure there are people out there. But we do practice. It's important to us that we practice safe refrigerant handling. It's very expensive to us to recover it, and the equipment used to recover it and to destroy it properly, rather than just let it out into the atmosphere.
Oh, wow. The time went really quick today. Brandon, give us the phone number for climate control.
352-291-0185.
Okay, and if you couldn't write that down, call us. We'll be glad to repeat that, or go to the WOCA.com website. You'll see Brandon's name, Climate Control Mechanical Services name, at the 10:35 slot on the guest list for AM Ocala Live for today. And it stays there. It doesn't disappear after today, so you could look at it tomorrow. And do you want to give your website?
It is climatecontrol.com.
Climatecontrol.com. Brandon, thank you.
Thank you.
Always some good information. We'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. The surviving Boston Marathon bombing suspect has stopped cooperating.